Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 524. My opponent played e4 and I went for e5. So we get the Ruy Lopez after a couple moves, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. So I play the Morphy defense, a6, and then he exchanges here, the exchange variation of the Ruy Lopez, which is an interesting way to play. It actually has quite a little bit of a point for white, which is that this pawn structure makes black's development a little bit awkward. And if white plays quickly here, this is the way Bobby Fischer used to play it, he would castle and get in an early d4 and open things up. And white can get some kind of initiative going. Now it turns out that black can defend. These awkward pawns over here are pretty solid in the long run, so it's not like it's winning, but there is some pressure from white early on, and black has to be careful. So an interesting opening. Now my opponent doesn't play that way. He plays h3. And this kind of defeats the point of the exchange variation in a way, because it's just a slow move, and really the only way for white to get any kind of advantage here is to play for quick development with moves like castles and d4. So it should be about even, but now I make a mistake here. This is kind of instructive, I thought. When your opponent plays a move that's out of the opening book, you should really pause and think about what's going on. Now, this pawn has been apparently hanging, but of course the trick is that black plays the move queen to d4 here and gets the pawn back. So knight takes pawn is not really a threat until after the e-pawn has been defended, or castling. I think castling indirectly defends the pawn. But this move h3 didn't defend the pawn, so I no longer need to play the routine defensive move. Normally at move 5 here in the exchange variation, you need to play a move to defend the pawn, like f3, queen d3, bishop d3 are the main moves. This move h3, by the way, prevents bishop g4, which would otherwise be an alternative there. But that's its only virtue, I guess. Anyway, so there's no need for me to play queen d6, and I could in fact defend this pawn more easily, more conveniently, I guess is the way to put it, by playing a move like knight e7. Knight e7, then he castles, then I have knight g6, and the pawn is defended by a knight and attacked by a knight, and it's just a comfortable position for black, just equalizing. So that's really what I should have been thinking here. Instead I just played the routine queen d6, which is the way I always play against the exchange variation, without paying attention to the little nuances of what my opponent had done here. So castles, I go bishop e6, and you'll see I gave back. I could have equalized basically, and now I gave back this opening advantage to white by not playing accurately. But this is still a decent way to play. Rook e1 and castles queenside. That's the point of this early queen move. It defends the pawn, but also allows an early queenside castling. And the king, surrounded by all these pawns, is pretty comfortable. The king often has to go to the b1 or b8 square rather to prevent an intrusion on a7 here. But other than that, so it takes time. That's I'd say the biggest downside of this setup. But if you can manage to hold everything together, this is pretty solid over here. The bishop on e6 here rather looks out at this diagonal. There's often a plan for the knight to come to the c4 square to harass the queen, and you're in a position to trade it off. So that's the point of this setup that I played with black. Okay, so let's go on. The game just continues from here. He plays d3, just showing up his center. What should he play here? Knight g5. I guess I've already managed to equalize again with this setup, so I guess there's no big advantage here. Knight g5, rook e3, c3. Okay, I guess he can't get away with playing d4. I was sort of expecting d4, but it looks like it's not a particularly good move here. One point, I already have my rook here lined up with the queen, so I can just take the pawn. So d4 is ruled out. So he goes d3, and I get my king over to b8. And we just have a normal position about equal. So he goes a3, wasting a little more time, and I go f6, shoring up my center here. This pawn often comes under attack, and then I want to get some kingside attack going with g5, g4. It's interesting, I often try this plan against the exchange variation, but usually white's play against my king over here on the queen side is fast enough that this attack never really gets very far. But in this case, because white has played so much slowly, I'm able to get this attack going and get a pretty good position. Okay, he goes bishop e3, I go g5, he goes knight h2. Okay, he's kind of regrouping or preparing for this pawn storm. Notice I don't even have to develop these pieces. I can throw the pawns forward and bring these pieces out behind the pawns. And it's all because he hasn't got any pressure against my king here. Otherwise, I couldn't get away with playing like this. So h5. He goes f3, shoring up his own center. Knight h6. Now the pieces can come in. And I'm just trying to get more force on the g4 square so I can push that pawn to g4 and force some open lines. Notice both rooks this rook is already well positioned, and the other rook can swing over quickly. I just need to get the bishop out of the way. So it's a pretty dangerous setup at this point. Let's see, he goes knight d2, getting another piece out, and I push on with g4, which is all good. So he played f takes, I take back, and he takes. And then, I notice at this point that he's got this pawn here as a weakness. I can go after it. So I play the move queen d7, but it's also a dual purpose move. The queen can swing over to the h file on this second or seventh, on the seventh rank there, which is going to be dangerous for attacks along the h file. Let's see. He played bishop takes h6. Yeah, he did get rid of my attacking knight. And now he's holding on to this pawn for the moment. Let's see, he goes knight d to f1, bring another piece over here to defend. And I go rook d to g8. Yeah, already I have a nice attack here with queen d4 check. Yeah, I missed this idea. Yeah, I was too focused on the pawns over here. In fact, by the time I grabbed this pawn, white has managed to equalize. So my obsession with winning this pawn was actually a big mistake. It's not about the material here. In this case, the open lines against the king, queen d4 check should be a pretty natural move in this position. Let's go ahead and play it out just to see how it would go. With queen d4 check, let's see, he could block with the knight. But I have the bishop on that square. Okay, so the knight blocking is out. So he has to move the king. And then bishop to f4. And you can see I'm piling up on the h file here. It is defended at the moment. But, okay, he plays c3 to kick my queen. And the queen drops back to b6. So just keeping him tied up. I guess the long-range plan is to just kind of double on the h file here and break through. And just with some kind of winning attack there. Okay, so that would be the way to play this. I went rook d to g8, which is logical and keeps an edge. But like I say, I keep focusing on this g-pawn here. I figured I needed to get it out of the way before I could break through, but there were other ways to break through, and my single-minded focus on this one pawn here is leading me astray. So he brings his queen out to help defend and hit my f-pawn over here. I went rook to g6, defending. He goes knight to g3, getting his pieces organized for his defense. And let's see, bishop takes g4. I grabbed the pawn here. Yeah, so it's just a mistake at this point. Let's see, bishop to f4. And this is a nice move with two purposes. Obviously putting pressure on the knights here, but also allowing queen over to h7. And notice this knight is under-defended at the moment, and with the bishop on f4, even dropping his knight back to defend would not help. So that's just winning, that bishop f4 move. Okay, so instead I happily grab this pawn, and after a couple of exchanges, knight takes. Let's see, I should have taken with the rook. I took with the queen instead. Yeah, and so by this point he's actually equalized. Queen takes, rook takes. So I went from a winning attack to just an even position here. And he can defend with knight f5, which he does. It's a good square for the knight. 2 rooks and a knight versus 2 rooks and a bishop, and the pawns are even. But I still have this weakness to play against. I mean, I have ideas in this position, but I think I think black should be able to hold this. At this point, I start to notice all the open lines around his king. I didn't think I could successfully pile up on the g-pawn. It looked like he was able to defend it. He has a knight to come back. Sorry, not to there. Well, actually, I could trade off that knight. Okay, but I can only get 2 pieces attacking it, and he can get a rook and king defending it. Yeah, so I can't win that pawn by force. I need another plan. Bishop f4 is also suggested by the engine. I tried this idea of rerouting my bishop over here to attack along this diagonal, which is a diagonal that would have been available, that was available earlier to my queen when I didn't play that queen d4 check. So he defends with rook e2. Let's see, the most accurate move here is g3. Yeah, g3 is a good move. Just defending that pawn with his knight. This knight is on a square. It's a light color, and so the bishop can never take it. So this knight is just a permanent fixture there, and so that means this pawn on g3 is securely defended. And so it looks like, yeah, there's no way to break through at this point anymore after g3. Okay, so instead he defended with rook e2, allowed me to play my bishop to c5, which I'd been setting up. Drives his king away. Oh, he blocked with the knight. Yeah, if he moves his king, then I have this mating. Yeah, rook to h8 is mate. So he can't move his king. Okay, so he blocked with the knight. That's the best way. And then rook h to g8. So I doubled on the g file here. And I'm just setting up this tactic where I can take his knight and grab the pawn. Let's see. He played rook a to e1. So maybe there's no defense to that tactic. I thought maybe there's something he could do here. But he needs to get another defender on it. And he can't do it. So rook a to e1, which he played, is actually the engine recommendation. But anyway, that allows me to break through. And we get into this rook and pawn endgame, where I am just a pawn up. So now let's go forward. There's a lot of kind of maneuvering here. I had 2 pawns up because I managed to grab a couple of pawns. And it's a bit... this pawn is a bit weak, so it's not so simple to win this, but 2 pawns you can usually win these rook and pawn endgames, even if you have a somewhat worse position. So I managed to maneuver around with my rook a little bit and finally find a good square for it over here attacking from the side. I need to kind of push pawns forward. Notice that he avoided the trade, which is a good idea here. This is just a winning king and pawn endgame, so he moves his rook to the side, and I just keep maneuvering with my pawns and my rook. So now these pawns over here on the queen side are quite secure. And now I play f5 to break through. The engine wants to break through with c6. Yeah, maybe that's a more logical... Oh, both of them work. Okay. c6 is also a good move to secure some kind of isolated... passed pawn over here on the queen side, because my king can come over and take back on c6, and the rook is securely defending the f-pawn now. So that'd be another way to break through. I broke through with f5, takes, take, cancel that. Oh, I took with the rook. And, well, I think this is pretty much, yeah, he allowed the trade, that was it. So he can continue to fight on with bringing his rook over to the side and trying to harass my king. That would cause the most trouble, but I should be winning with the 2 extra pawns here. Anyway, he allows this trade, and then this is an easily winning king and pawn endgame because I have enough time to get my king over here to defend my pawn, attack his pawn, and his king has no moves. If it comes forward like this to try and go after my pawn, I'm just going to queen quicker than he can take these 2 pawns and queen his pawn. So no way for white to survive this position, and my opponent resigned. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Interesting game. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.